Thursday, we check in with Tony Messenger, St. Louis Post-Dispatch columnist. Tony Messenger, good morning.
Good morning, McGraw. Good morning, Kelly. How's everybody doing?
We are doing well. I read with quite a bit of interest this story by your colleague Kurt Erickson about Lieutenant Governor Mike Parson, who is now, after your early reporting on this and bringing this to attention, he's now calling for some major changes at that St. Louis Veterans Home. Tell us all about it.
Yeah, yesterday, Lieutenant Governor Mike Parson had a news conference in Jeff City and called for the removal of Rolando Carter, the administrator of the St. Louis Veterans Home, and one of his top assistants, Anika Khan, pointing to some of the legal difficulties they've had and the problems they've had at other nursing homes, and just raising continued attention to the problems going on at that home. The lieutenant governor has been on this from the beginning. It was in February when the former medical director of that facility first wrote a letter to both Governor Greitens and Lieutenant Governor Parson and met with the lieutenant governor. And Governor Greitens says he never got the letter, but Lieutenant Governor Parson sure did and has been investigating. I reported a week ago on a leak of a investigative report that one of his top aides put together that he gave to the Missouri Veterans Commission that mimics many of the things that I've been reporting in my columns. Veterans being abused, treated poorly, families being not being communicated with and being disrespected, employees being fired and walked out of the facility for trying to stand up for the veterans. It's a mess. And what I've heard in the last 2 weeks are two sort of contradictory things, and I think this is why Lieutenant Governor is trying to raise attention now. During the time that the independent investigators came in about a week ago to meet with veterans and families and employees, the administrator, Rolando Carter, and some of his key aides were intimidating employees, trying to get a list of those who were talking to the investigator, trying to keep the investigator away from families. Things are getting worse as the heat is turned up. And so it's a catch-22. There seems to be movement towards some resolution, and yet while that movement is taking place, care the veterans are receiving, in part because there aren't enough employees and because the administrator continues to intimidate the employees and the family members, is getting worse. And so it continues to be an intense situation, and I hope that the governor is listening to his lieutenant governor, because the governor ultimately is the one who appoints members of the Missouri Veterans Commission who hire their director, who ultimately has the authority to do something about this home, and absolutely has done nothing.
So, Tony, is it just this one veterans home, or is it a problem without the veterans homes? I mean, what is it about this one home that is so hard to fix?
Well, there's a couple of things. As it relates to this specific home, there are some serious questions about the current administrator. But there is a larger question about the fact that Missouri State employees in this particular area are the lowest paid employees in the country. That contributes to the fact that they're having a hard time maintaining quality staff, and that leads to reduced care for our veterans. That's a larger public policy issue that has been raised that probably affects all 7 veterans homes. I'm getting little bits of information about problems at some of the other homes that I haven't had much of a chance to investigate yet. But the problems at this home are directly related to the current administrator, to the director of the Missouri Veterans Commission, General Larry Kay, who some of your listeners might recall was found liable in a $2 million sexual harassment and discrimination lawsuit last year, and still somehow kept his job. And ultimately the governor, who hasn't reappointed anybody to the Missouri Veterans Commission. Here's a guy who has spent the last 8 to 10 months doing everything he can to fire the Commissioner of Education by appointing and reappointing people to the Board of Education, possibly breaking the law in the process of trying to fire this commissioner without ever explaining why he wanted to fire her. And then you have this other commission that he has control over that has all expired terms. He could reappoint the entire commission except for the lawmakers who sit on it, hasn't moved to do anything, and for months he's had people begging him, do something to protect the veterans. Lieutenant Governor obviously believes the governor isn't doing enough.
Yeah, that is perplexing. I mean, we can all pick on Greitens for all sorts of reasons. He doesn't like to talk to the media. He doesn't like the media, whatever else. But the man's a veteran. Helping veterans is a pretty simple, right? That's low-hanging fruit.
Yep.
Why wouldn't you do everything? He picks a fight not only with the news media, but with Senator Blunt as well, right? With that letter.
Yep.
Went
after Senator Blunt, went after Senator McCaskill. He's clearly not on the same page as the Lieutenant Governor. They're both Republicans. It's frustrating. I can tell you, I talk to family members almost every day, and they are just beyond frustrated. They don't understand it. They thought he was going to be the guy to stand up for them.
And the woman who originally this all started with was, I remember, I think was a Greitens supporter, was a Trump supporter, and ultimately called you because she wasn't getting any help through the state government.
Yes, her name's Dory Pohalski. She lives in Kirkwood. She's been a staunch Republican supporter. She campaigned for Governor Greitens. She tried very, very hard over a series of months to keep this out of the media and did so successfully, and ultimately became frustrated because she wasn't getting anything done. And she's met with countless veterans and their families. She's recorded them, put them on video, took down their notes, passed this information on to the governor and the lieutenant governor. And clearly the lieutenant governor has been meeting. The families are pretty pleased with the fact that he's trying to do what he can do, but he doesn't have any power.
Yeah. So the fact that he calls this news conference, which clearly was meant to sort of put pressure on the governor, it's now, I guess it was yesterday, today's Tuesday, so we don't know if the governor heard the message.
We have no idea, and I fully expect at some point the governor to put a news release out that says he's been on top of this forever and he's doing something, but we keep waiting for that.
Tony Messer, St. Louis Post-Dispatch, every day, stltoday.com, and with us Tuesdays and Thursdays. Tony, thanks. Have a good day.